hooker,
hooker,
Hook up.
hook up,
hooky,
hooky,
hooligan,
hooligan,
football hooligans, hoop,
Hoop.
hooped, hooped,
Hooped earrings.
hoopla, hoopla,
All the hoopla that surrounded the trial.
hooray,
hooray,
hooray Henry,
Hooray, Henry.
hoot,
hoot,
hoots of laughter rose from the audience.
The car behind was hooting at me. He had the audience hooting with laughter.
hooch,
Hooch.
Hooter,
hooter,
hoover,
hoover, hoover,
hooves,
hooves, hop,
hop,
A little girl hopping and skipping.
Hop in. I'll drive you home. Patrick hopped out of bed and quickly got dressed.
So we hopped a bus to Phoenix that night. So we hopped a bus to Phoenix that night.
It's just a short hop from Cleveland to Detroit.
hope,
hope,
We hope that more women will decide to join the course.
I do hope everything goes well. I do hope everything goes well.
It was hoped that the job would be filled by a local person.
Let's just hope someone finds her bag. I hope to God I haven't left the car window open. I hope to God I haven't left the car window open. I hope to God I haven't left the car window open. I hope to God I haven't left the car window open.
Joan's hoping to study law at Harvard.
We were hoping for good weather.
Liam decided to ignore the warning and just hope for the best.
I rang my parents, hoping against hope that they hadn't left yet. I rang my parents, hoping against hope that they hadn't left yet.
Do we get paid this week? I certainly hope so. I don't think I'm busy that day, or at least I hope not.
I'm hoping the car will be fixed by Friday.
We were hoping to see you today. We were hoping to see you today.
I hope I'm not interrupting you.
I hope you don't mind me asking, but why are you moving?
They'll get their money back. I should hope so too, after being treated like that.
When I first arrived in New York, I was full of hope for the future.
The President has expressed the hope that relations will improve.
Hopes for an end to the fighting.
Rita has hopes of studying to be a nurse.
Should they hang on in the hope that the shares will go up in value? Should they hang on in the hope that the shares will go up in value? Shoppers flocked to the sales in the hope of finding a bargain. Shoppers flocked to the sales in the hope of finding a bargain.
She told him all her secret hopes and fears. My hope is that by next summer I'll have saved enough money to go travelling.
It was the rush hour, and there was no hope of getting a seat.
It was a desperate plan, with little hope of success. There's still a faint hope that the two sides will reach an agreement. They don't have a hope in hell of winning.
Your dad might lend you the car. Some hope. Your dad might lend you the car. Some hope.
Please help me. You're my last hope.
Joshua's only hope of survival was a heart transplant.
Some of the houses were beyond hope of repair.
The weather looked good, so we had high hopes for today. Do you think your son will ever get a job? We live in hope.
Hoped for. Hoped for.
I was at home when the desperately hoped-for call came through. I was at home when the desperately hoped-for call came through.
Hopeful.
Hopeful.
Everyone's feeling pretty hopeful about the future. I'm hopeful that we can find a solution.
He is still hopeful of playing in Saturday's game.
The vote is a hopeful sign that attitudes in the church are changing. The vote is a hopeful sign that attitudes in the church are changing.
Things might get better, but it doesn't look very hopeful right now.
Thousands of young hopefuls were auditioned for the role.
Republican presidential hopefuls.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
Hopefully I'll be back home by 10 o'clock. By then the problem will hopefully have been solved.
Will there be any food left over? He asked hopefully.
Hopeless.
Hopeless.
We tried to stop the flames from spreading, but we knew it was hopeless.
Getting your work published often seems a hopeless task.
I kept on struggling forward, even though I knew it was hopeless.
The situation is not as hopeless as it might seem. The millions who live in hopeless poverty.
I'm a hopeless cook.
My brother was always pretty hopeless at ball games. I'm hopeless with machinery. I've got a hopeless memory. The public transport system was absolutely hopeless.
I began to feel lonely and hopeless.
Oh, James, you really are a hopeless case.
She was a hopeless romantic, always convinced that one day she would meet the man of her dreams. She was a hopeless romantic, always convinced that one day she would meet the man of her dreams.
Hopelessly.
Hopelessly.
We found ourselves hopelessly outnumbered by the enemy.
She felt hopelessly confused.
I was trying to find the museum, but I got hopelessly lost.
When will I see you again? He asked hopelessly.
Hopped up.
Hopped up.
Hopper. Hopper.
Hopscotch.
Hopscotch.
Horde.
Horde.
There were hordes of people inside the station.
Horizon.
Horizon.
We could see a ship on the horizon.
A course of study that will broaden your horizons.
Business is good now, but there are a few problems on the horizon.
Horizontal.
Horizontal.
A horizontal surface.
11 degrees below the horizontal.
Hormone.
Hormone.
Hormonal changes.
Hormone replacement therapy.
Hormone replacement therapy.
Horn.
Horn.
A knife with a horn handle.
Don't try and horn in on our fun.
Hornbill.
Hornbill.
Horned.
Horned.
Horned cattle.
A horned toad.
Hornet.
Hornet.
The new production targets have stirred up a hornet's nest.
Hornpipe.
Hornpipe.
Horn-rimmed.
Horn-rimmed.
Horny.
Horny.
Feeling horny.
I think he's horny.
The bird's horny beak. Horoscope.
Horoscope.
Horrendous.
Horrendous.
A horrendous experience.
She suffered horrendous injuries.
Horrendous debts. The traffic was horrendous.
Horrible.
Horrible.
The weather has been really horrible all week. A horrible smell.
The food looked horrible, but it tasted okay.
A horrible dream.
I have a horrible feeling that we're going to miss the plane.
She's a horrible person.
What a horrible thing to say.
Why are you so horrible to me?
Her face was horribly scarred.
The plan had gone horribly wrong.
Horrid.
Horrid.
A horrid smell. Don't be so horrid.
Horrific.
Horrific.
A horrific plane crash.
His injuries were horrific.
Horrify.
Horrify.
Henry was horrified by what had happened.
She was horrified to discover that he loved Rose.
Horrifying.
Horrifying.
Murder, rape, and other horrifying crimes.
It's horrifying to see how much poverty there is here.
Horror.
Horror.
Staff watched in horror as he set himself alight.
Many people recoil with horror when they see a big spider like this.
To my horror, I realized my shirt was wet with blood.
You should have seen the look of horror on his face. The horrors of war.
Dense smoke surrounded them, adding to the horror of the situation.
Only when the vehicle was lifted did the full horror of the accident become clear. Only when the vehicle was lifted did the full horror of the accident become clear.
He has a horror of snakes.
Horror movie.
Horror movie.
Horror story.
Horror story.
Horror stories about patients being given the wrong drugs.
Horror struck.
Horror struck.
Hors d'oeuvre.
Hors d'oeuvre.
Horse.
Horse.
A horse and cart.
Lee had never ridden a horse before. Jim likes a bet on the horses.
Stop horsing around. You'll break something.
Horsefly.
Horsefly.
Horsehair.
Horsehair.
Horseman.
Horseman.
The headless horseman.
Headless horseman.
Horsemanship.
Horsemanship.
Horseplay.
Horseplay.
Horsepower.
Horsepower.
A 200 horsepower engine.
The superior horsepower of a Volkswagen.
Horse racing.
Horse racing.
Horseradish.
Horseradish.
Horse riding.
Horse riding.
Horse shit.
Horse shit.
Horseshoe.
Horseshoe.
Horse show.
Horse show.
Horse trading.
Horse trading.
Horse trailer.
Horse trailer.
Horsewoman.
Horsewoman.
Horsey.
Horsey.
Horticulture.
Horticulture.
Hose.
Hose.
Would you hose down the car for me?
Hosepipe.
Hosepipe.
Hosiery.
Hosiery.
Hospice.
Hospice.
Hospital.
Hospital.
They are building a new hospital. She visited him in hospital. 2 people are in the hospital with serious burns.
Hospitable.
Hospitable.
The local people were very kind and hospitable.
The Sahara is one of the world's least hospitable regions.
Hospitality.
Hospitality.
Thanks for your hospitality over the past few weeks.
The use of a yacht for corporate hospitality.
There was a reception in the hospitality suite before the game.
Hospitalize.
Hospitalize.
Host.
Host.
Our host greeted us at the door. A game show host.
The host city for the next Olympic Games.
The gallery is playing host to an exhibition of sculpture. The gallery is playing host to an exhibition of sculpture. A host of show business celebrities have pledged their support. A host of show business celebrities have pledged their support.
Which country is going to host the next World Cup? Next week's show will be hosted by Sarah Cox.
Hostage.
Hostage.
The group are holding 2 tourists hostage. A family taken hostage at gunpoint.
Our country must not be held hostage to our past. Our country must not be held hostage to our past.
Hostel.
Hostel.
Hostelry.
Hostelry.
Hostess.
Hostess.
Hostel.
Hostel.
Southampton fans gave their former coach a hostile reception. Southampton fans gave their former coach a hostile reception. Carr wouldn't meet Feng's stare, which was openly hostile. Carr wouldn't meet Feng's stare, which was openly hostile.
His hostile attitude. The boy feels hostile towards his father.
Senator Lydon was hostile to our proposals.
Hostile territory.
A guide to surviving in even the most hostile terrain. A guide to surviving in even the most hostile terrain.
Sales increased last year despite the hostile economic environment.
Hostility.
Hostility.
Hostility towards foreigners.
Hostility toward religious minorities. They eyed each other with open hostility.
The reform program was greeted with hostility by conservatives.
There is a lot of public hostility to the tax. Pictures of refugees aroused popular hostility towards the war.
Republican hostility towards slavery.
A cessation of hostilities.
Hostler.
Hostler.
Hot. Hot.
A hot day in July. It's so hot in here. Can I open the window?
Be careful, the water's very hot.
The bar serves hot and cold food. People who live in hot countries. People who live in hot countries.
A scorching hot week in August.
The office gets unbearably hot in summer.
The coffee was scalding hot.
Serve the soup piping hot. Serve the soup piping hot.
The handle was red hot. He held the metal in the flame until it became white hot.
I was hot and tired after the journey.
The wine made her feel hot.
This sweater's too hot to wear inside.
A hot curry. One of the hottest young directors in Hollywood.
Gareth Bale is one of soccer's hottest properties.
The movie is going to be this summer's hot ticket.
A hot young guitar player. A hot piece of software. His new film is hot stuff. She's pretty hot at swimming, too. Some of the tracks on the record are great, but others are not so hot.
The girls all think he's hot stuff.
His hot and steamy first novel.
She has a hot date with Michelle.
If things get too hot, I can always leave.
Wilkinson found his opponent a little too hot to handle. Wilkinson found his opponent a little too hot to handle. Wilkinson found his opponent a little too hot to handle.
The climate was too hot politically to make such radical changes.
The affair was a hot topic of conversation.
One of the hottest issues facing medical science.
The finance minister found himself in hot water over his business interests.
She got herself in hot water with the authorities.
I don't understand why people are getting so hot under the collar about it. I don't understand why people are getting so hot under the collar about it. People were struggling with bags and cases, looking hot and bothered. People were struggling with bags and cases, looking hot and bothered.
You'll have the report in your hot little hands by Monday. Do you want to hear about all the latest hot gossip?
The car sped away with the police in hot pursuit. The other car was hot on his tail.
Mrs. Bass's dog, was already hot on his heels.
The news came hot on the heels of another plane crash. Journalists hot on the trail of a news story. She keeps blowing hot and cold about the wedding.
I'm not feeling too hot today.
He's pretty hot on aircraft. The company is very hot on security.
Europe is hot for a product like this.
He was hot for revenge.
Competition for the best jobs is getting hotter all the time. Competition for the best jobs is getting hotter all the time.
A hot tip on the stock market.
She's delivered more babies than you've had hot dinners. She's delivered more babies than you've had hot dinners. She's delivered more babies than you've had hot dinners.
Things generally hot up a few days before the race.
Hot air.
Hot air.
The theory was dismissed as a lot of hot air.
Hot air balloon.
Hot air balloon.
Hotbed.
Hotbed.
The university was a hotbed of radical protest.
Hot-blooded.
Hot-blooded.
Hot button.
Hot button.
Your letter certainly hit a hot button. Hot button issues.
Hot cake.
Hot cake.
Copies of the book are selling like hotcakes.
Hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate.
Hodgepodge.
Hodgepodge.
Hot cross bun.
Hot cross bun.
Hot desk.
Hot desk.
Hot dish.
Hot dish.
Hot dog.
Hot dog.
Hot dog.
Hotel.
Hotel.
I've booked the flights and the hotel. We'll be at the Hotel Ibis.